The most powerful woman in the city had spent 2 years and a fortune trying to reach her own son, and the boy still would not so much as look at a stranger. Doctors, specialists, the most expensive therapists in the country. Nothing. And then, at a charity gala full of the people she paid to fix him, her silent 8-year-old walked away from all of them, crossed the room, and sat down on the floor next to the man refilling the water glasses. Me, a single dad in a borrowed jacket, on my hands and knees, picking up a tray I'd dropped. The boy sat down beside me without a word, and he watched my hands, and after a minute he did something his mother told me later she had not seen him do for a stranger in 2 full years. He leaned his small shoulder against my arm, and across that ballroom the CEO, his mother, dropped her champagne glass. It shattered on the marble, and she didn't even hear it. She was staring at her son leaning on a stranger, and her face was coming apart. What none of us knew yet was that the reason her boy had crossed that entire room to sit beside me would take me back to the worst year of my own life, and that what I understood about that child, nobody in that room of experts had ever once considered. But before I tell you why he chose me, do me one quick favor. If you have ever been the person that gets overlooked because of what they do for a living, hit that subscribe button right now. This whole channel is built for the people who turn out to matter most when nobody expected them to. Go on, I'll wait. Now, let me back all the way up. Because to understand why a silent boy leaned on a stranger, you first have to understand a fish tank, a son I lost too young, and the quietest, hardest, most important lesson grief ever taught me. My name is Daniel Frost. I am 42 years old, and I take care of the fish at a large public aquarium. That's my job. I'm an aquarist. I feed them, I keep their water right, I watch their health, I clean the great glass tanks that thousands of people press their faces against every day. It is not a job that impresses anyone at a dinner party. When people ask what I do and I tell them, I watch their eyes do a little slide, the way eyes do when they've decided you're not important. I'm used to it. I stopped minding a long time ago, but I'll tell you something the fish taught me that took me years to understand. You cannot make a frightened creature come to you. You cannot reach into the water and grab it and force it to trust you. The harder you reach, the deeper it hides. The only way that has ever worked since the beginning of time, is to become very still and very patient, and to let the creature decide in its own time that you are safe. You make yourself quiet. You make yourself a part of the room instead of a threat in it. And then you wait. And one day, when you've stopped expecting it, the frightened thing comes close because you finally stop chasing it. That's not just fish, that's people too. That's the whole secret of every scared and hurting living thing there is. That, right there, is most of the story. Everything else is just details. I need to tell you about my own son now, because you cannot understand any of what happened without him, and it is the hardest part for me to talk about. I had a son. His name was Noah. He was autistic, and he was the most extraordinary person I have ever known. And he died when he was 9 years old, of a heart condition we did not know he had 6 years ago. I am not going to dwell on the dying, because it is mine and it is too heavy to set down in front of you. But I have to tell you about his living, because his living is the reason I knew what to do when I met another boy like him. Noah did not connect with the world the way other people expected him to. He didn't make eye contact the way they wanted. He didn't speak the way they wanted, when they wanted. For years, well-meaning people tried to make Noah more like them, tried to pull him out of his own beautiful mind into theirs, and I watched it frighten him and shrink him, and I hated it, even when I didn't yet understand why. And then, slowly, being his father, I learned the thing that changed everything. I learned that Noah wasn't missing. He wasn't broken. He wasn't a problem to be solved. He was simply somewhere, fully and richly somewhere, and the only way to reach him was not to drag him out, but to go in, to learn his language, instead of forcing him to learn mine. To love the things he loved, on his terms, until the love built a bridge that no amount of pulling ever could. Noah loved fish. That's how I ended up at the aquarium, if you want the truth. He loved them with his whole soul, could name hundreds of species, could sit in front of a tank for hours in a state of pure peace that the rest of the world could never give him. The aquarium was the one place Noah was never afraid. And after he died, I could not stay in my old job, could not stay in a life that was shaped around him and now had a hole in the middle of it. So I went to the one place that still felt like him. I went to the fish. I've taken care of them ever since. It's the closest I get to him now, standing in front of the same tanks where my boy found peace, keeping the water right for the creatures he loved. So that's me. A man who lost a son, who learned the hardest and most beautiful lesson a father can learn just a little too late to save him, and who takes care of fish now because it's where the ghost of his boy still lives. Now, let me tell you how I ended up at that gala, because a man like me does not belong at a gala. The aquarium was hosting a fundraiser, a big one. The kind of event where wealthy donors come and drink champagne under the great tanks and write enormous checks, and the staff who actually keep the place running are mostly kept out of sight in the back. But they were short-handed for the event, and they asked a few of us regular staff to help serve, to carry trays and refill glasses, to be useful and invisible. The pay was extra, and I could use it, because a single man's wages don't stretch far, even one as alone as me. So I put on the one decent jacket I owned, which didn't fit right, and I went to carry trays at a party full of people who would look straight through me. And the guest of honor that night, the single biggest donor, the woman whose foundation was funding the aquarium's entire new wing, was a woman named Eleanor Hauntz. She was the head of an enormous company, one of those names you know without knowing why, sharp and elegant and surrounded all night by people who laughed at the right moments. And she had brought her son. I noticed the boy before I knew who he was, because I notice boys like him. I always will, for the rest of my life. He was maybe 8, in a little suit, standing very close to his mother's leg in the middle of all that noise and light and crowd, and he had the particular stillness, the particular held-breath watchfulness, that I knew from the inside out. He was overwhelmed. Anyone who'd loved a child like that could see it in a second. The lights were too bright, and the sounds were too loud, and the strangers were too many. And this little boy was holding himself together with everything he had, in a room built for people whose brains worked nothing like his. And nobody was helping him. That's what got me. His mother loved him, you could see that. She kept a hand near him, kept checking on him, but she was also the host, pulled in 20 directions, and the people around her, the assistants and the guests, kept doing the thing that people always do with a child like that. They kept getting in his face, crouching down, talking too loud, too fast, too close. "Hi there, what's your name? Are you having fun? Cat got your tongue?" Each one a small assault, each one making the boy retreat a little further behind his own eyes. I watched a man in an expensive suit ruffle the kid's hair, and I watched the boy flinch like he'd been struck, and I had to physically stop myself from crossing the room. I learned later from his mother what I was looking at. The boy's name was Oliver. He was autistic. And about 2 years before, after his father, Eleanor's husband, had died suddenly, Oliver had stopped speaking to almost everyone. He'd always been a quiet, inward child, but the loss of his father had closed a door in him, and he had not spoken a word to a stranger since. Eleanor had done what a powerful, terrified, loving mother does. She had thrown everything at it. The best specialists, the most expensive therapies, an army of experts, all working to reach her son, all trying to pull Oliver back out into the world. And none of it had worked, because, I think, none of them had understood the one thing I'd had to lose a son to learn. You don't pull a child like that out. You go in. So there I was, carrying my tray, watching this little boy drown in a room full of people trying to save him. And I knew exactly what he needed, because I'd spent 9 years learning it from a boy just like him. He needed everyone to stop reaching for him. I didn't do anything dramatic. I want to be clear about that. I didn't march over and announce that I understood him. That would have been just one more stranger getting in his face. Instead, I did the only thing I know how to do, the thing the fish taught me, the thing Noah taught me. I made myself a part of the room instead of a threat in it. I was carrying a tray of glasses past where Oliver was standing, and as I passed, I clumsy on purpose a little. I let the tray tip, and a few glasses slid and clattered, and I went down onto my knees right there a few feet from him to gather them up. Not toward him, not looking at him. Just a quiet man down on the floor, doing a small careful task with his hands, making no demand of him at all, taking up a small still space in the corner of his overwhelming world. And I did the thing I used to do for Noah when the world got too loud. As I picked up the glasses, I started, very softly, almost under my breath, not to anyone, to talk about the fish. "That big one in the tank behind you," I murmured, mostly to myself, lining the glasses up on the tray. "That's a Napoleon wrasse. People think the hump on his head means he's angry. He's not. He's just old. The older they get, the bigger the hump. That one's older than you and me put together." I wasn't talking to Oliver. I was very careful not to talk to Oliver. I was just a man on the floor, talking quietly about fish, asking nothing, reaching for nothing, becoming still water instead of a grabbing hand. And out of the corner of my eye, without turning my head, I saw the boy go still in a different way. Not the held breath stillness of being overwhelmed. A listening stillness. His head had turned just slightly toward the tank, toward me. So I kept going, soft and slow, still not looking at him. Still gathering glasses I was now picking up and putting down again, just to have a reason to stay on that floor. The little blue ones, those are blue tangs. They sleep wedged into the rock so the current doesn't carry them off while they're not paying attention. And see the cleaner shrimp down at the bottom? The big fish line up and let him climb right into their mouths to clean their teeth, and the big fish never eat him, because everybody understands the deal. Even down there, they look out for each other. And then I felt it. A small presence, lowering itself down to the floor beside me. I did not turn, I did not react. I kept my hands moving and my voice soft. Oliver had left his mother's side, crossed a few feet of that terrifying ballroom, and sat down on the marble floor next to the strange man talking about fish. He sat close, the way a child sits next to something safe, and he looked at the tank, and then he looked at my hands moving among the glasses, and I kept narrating, gently, the secret lives of the fish, as if nothing at all remarkable were happening, because the most important thing in the world, in that moment, was that I not make it a thing. And after a minute, Oliver leaned his small shoulder against my arm. Continued in the next part. I heard the glass shatter across the room. I looked up, just for a second, and there was Eleanor Hauntz, the CEO, the most powerful woman in that ballroom, standing frozen with the stem of a broken champagne glass still in her hand and the rest of it in pieces at her feet, and she was staring at her son leaning on a stranger, and her face had simply fallen open. 2 years of holding herself together in front of doctors and donors, and it had all come undone in 1 second, because her silent boy was resting his shoulder against the arm of the man who refilled the water glasses. She came across the room fast, and I felt Oliver tense beside me, felt him start to pull back into himself at the approach, and so I did the only thing I could think to do. I kept my voice low and even, and I said softly, still to the tank, "Here comes someone who loves you very much. It's okay, we're just watching the fish." And Eleanor, to her enormous credit, understood. I watched this woman who commanded boardrooms read the situation in an instant and do the hardest thing a frightened parent can do. She slowed down. She stopped a few feet away. She lowered herself, carefully, quietly, onto the floor on the other side of her son, in her gown, on the marble, in front of everyone, and she did not grab him, did not smother him, did not say any of the bright, desperate things people say. She just sat. She joined the still water instead of becoming a wave. And I understood, watching her do it, that she was not a cold woman at all. She was a woman who had simply never been shown how. "What are we looking at?" she asked, very softly, matching me. "The Napoleon Rasa," I murmured, "the old one with the hump. Oliver's keeping an eye on him." And Eleanor made a small sound, and I glanced over, and she had tears running silently down her face, because I had said her son's name and her son's interest in the same breath, as if they were the most natural things in the world, as if Oliver were not a problem to be managed, but simply a boy who was keeping an eye on an old fish. I don't think anyone had talked about her son that way, like that, in a very long time. We sat on that floor, the three of us, for a long while. The gala went on around us, and the important people pretended not to stare. And slowly, in his own time, on his own terms, Oliver began to talk. Not to me directly, not at first. He started by correcting me. In a small, clear, precise voice that his mother had not heard him use with a stranger in 2 years, he informed me that the blue tangs do not only sleep in the rocks, they also change color slightly when they sleep, and that I had left that part out. He knew everything about those fish. Everything. He had memorized them, loved them, the exact way my Noah had. And once that first door opened, the words came, slowly, then faster, a quiet flood of fish facts and corrections and observations. And Eleanor Hauntz sat on the floor of her own gala and listened to her son talk, and she held my eyes over the top of his head, and she did not have to say anything, because her whole face was saying it. Now, here is the part where the story became about more than one evening. After Oliver finally tired, and an assistant took him somewhere quiet to rest, Eleanor asked me, in a voice still unsteady, if she could speak with me privately. We stepped away from the crowd to a quiet corner under one of the great tanks, the blue light moving over both of us. "In 2 years," she said, "I have spent more money than I will tell you, on more experts than I can count, trying to reach my son. And not one of them has ever gotten what you just got in 10 minutes on the floor while picking up glasses." She studied my face. "You didn't do that by accident. You knew exactly what you were doing, every move, the not looking, the talking to yourself, the waiting. That wasn't luck. That was someone who has done this before. Who is this man? Who are you?" So I told her. I told her about Noah. I told her I'd had a son, autistic, extraordinary, who loved fish more than anything in the world, and who I'd spent 9 years learning to reach, not by pulling him out, but by going in. And I told her that he had died 6 years ago, at 9 years old, and that I worked at this aquarium now because it was the place my boy had loved best, and the closest I could get to him. Eleanor Hauntz put her hand over her mouth. "Your son taught you," she said slowly, "how to reach mine. My son taught me everything I know about boys like Oliver," I said. including the one thing all your experts seem to have missed. Oliver isn't lost, Mrs. Hans. He isn't behind a wall you have to break down. He's right there, completely, in his own world. And that world is rich and full and real. You don't have to drag him into ours. You just have to be willing to visit his. Learn what he loves. Love it with him. The bridge gets built from his side, in his time, but only if you stop trying to force it from yours. I looked at her. Everyone's been trying to pull Oliver out for 2 years. Nobody's been going in. That's all I did. I went in, through the fish, because I learned the door from a boy just like him. She was quiet for a long moment, the blue light moving over her face, tears on it. I lost my husband 2 years ago, she said. Oliver's father. And I have spent every day since terrified that I was losing Oliver too, watching him disappear and throwing everything I had at the problem, and it was never working, and I could not understand why. Her voice cracked. And you just told me, in 1 minute, the thing I have been failing to understand for 2 years, that I have been trying to pull him toward me when I should have been walking toward him. And here is where the story turns, because Eleanor Hans, being who she was, immediately tried to do the thing powerful people do. She tried to solve it with money. I want you to come work for us, she said. For Oliver, full-time. Name your salary, any salary, 10 times what you make here more. I want you with him. You're the only person who's ever reached him. I'll pay you whatever it takes. And I understood the impulse, and I understood it came from love and from fear, and I knew I had to answer it carefully, because she was offering me a fortune, and I'm not a wealthy man, and there was a real part of me that wanted to say yes on the spot. But I said no. I can't take that, I said. She blinked. People did not, I gathered, often say no to Eleanor Hans. Why not? You need the money, I can see that you do, and Oliver needs you. Why would you refuse? Because the second you put me on a payroll to be Oliver's reacher, I said, I become one more expert. One more service his mother purchased to fix him. And that's exactly the thing that's been failing him for 2 years. Oliver doesn't need another hired professional. He's surrounded by hired professionals. What he needs, what every kid like him needs, is people who are in his world because they actually want to be, not because they're being paid to be. The moment money changes hands, the realness goes out of it. He'll feel that. Kids like Oliver feel everything. They're the best lie detectors in the world. I shook my head. I won't be a thing you bought. Not for this. This is too important to put a price on. She stared at me. Then what do you want? There has to be something I can do. And I told her the truth. I don't want a salary, I said. But here's what I'll do, for free. Because I want to and not because you paid me. Bring Oliver to the aquarium. On the quiet mornings before we open, when it's dark and still and there are no crowds. I'll show him the tanks from the back, the parts the public never sees. I'll teach him to help feed them, and I'll teach you, Mrs. Hans, how to sit in his world with him so that you don't need me, so that you become the person who reaches your own son. Because that's the goal, not me, you. I'm just the one who can show you the door. The walking through it has to be you. Eleanor Hans looked at me for a very long time, and then this powerful, elegant, grieving woman, in front of the great blue tank, bowed her head and said, "Thank you. Thank you for not letting me buy my way out of the actual work. I think I have been buying my way out of things my whole life, and I think it's why I couldn't reach him. Now, I told you this is not a fairy tale, so here's the true part, which is better than any salary. They came, the next quiet morning, and the one after that, and dozens after those. Eleanor would bring Oliver to the aquarium before dawn, before the crowds, and I would let them in through the back, and Oliver, in the dark and the quiet and the safety, came alive. He helped me feed the fish. He learned the back tanks, the systems, the names of everything. And slowly, his words came, more and more, until the boy who hadn't spoken to a stranger in 2 years was chattering happily to the aquarium staff, all of whom learned, because I taught them, to meet him in his world instead of demanding he come to theirs. But the real thing, the thing that mattered most, was Eleanor. I taught her the way Noah had taught me. I taught her to go still, to stop reaching, to love the fish because Oliver loved them, to let the bridge get built from his side. And I watched, over weeks and months, a mother learn to reach her own son. I watched her stop being one more anxious adult trying to fix him and start being the safest person in his world. The first time Oliver, unprompted, reached over and took his mother's hand in front of a tank and told her a fact about seahorses, she had to leave the room to cry, and I let her go because I knew exactly what that moment was. I'd had 1,000 of them with Noah, and I'd give anything for one more. I never took $1 from Eleanor Hantz for any of it. We argued about it more than once, and I won every time, which I'm told is unheard of. And I think she let me win because my refusing the money was the one thing that proved to her it was real, that I was in Oliver's world because I chose to be, the way she was learning to be. But you cannot stop a woman like Eleanor from being good when she's been shown how. She couldn't pay me, so she did something else. Something that took my breath away. She built something. With her foundation, she created a program, a real one, that trains the parents of autistic children for free in the thing I'd had to lose a son to learn. Not therapy to fix the kids. Training for the parents, to teach them how to go in instead of pulling out. How to enter their children's worlds instead of forcing the children into theirs. She built it so that other mothers and fathers wouldn't have to spend 2 years and a fortune failing the way she had before someone showed them the door, and she named it after Noah. My son. The Noah Frost program, so that the boy who taught me everything, the boy the world lost at 9, would go on teaching parents how to reach their children for as long as the program runs. My son's name, doing the thing my son did best, helping kids like him be seen. I cannot tell you what it did to me the day she told me the name. I had to sit down. My boy, who I thought the world had simply lost, is reaching children he'll never meet. Every single day, forever. There's a version of that gala where I take the salary, where I let Eleanor put me on her payroll and pay me a fortune to be her son's reacher, and maybe it even works out fine for a while. And there is no version of that where I do that and also get to watch a mother learn to reach her own son with her own hands, or see my dead boy's name on a program that saves other families the years of failing. I picked the realer thing. I'd pick it every single time. Oliver is 10 now. He talks. Not to everyone, not always, not the way the world demands, but on his own terms, richly, when he's safe and when he wants to. He volunteers at the aquarium now, on the quiet mornings, the most knowledgeable junior aquarist we have. And Eleanor doesn't need me anymore, which was always the point. She walks in her son's world like she was born to it. Sometimes I catch the two of them in front of a tank, mother and son, her shoulder against his, both of them watching the fish in perfect quiet. And I think of Noah, and it doesn't only hurt anymore, it also, finally, heals a little. So let me leave you with this tonight. A room full of experts spent 2 years trying to pull a boy out into their world, and failed because they never once thought to go into his. And the one person who knew the way in was the man they'd all overlooked, the one refilling the water glasses, who had learned the secret from a son the world had already taken. Sometimes the person who can reach what no one else can is the one nobody thought to ask, because grief had already taught them the language. So, here is what I honestly want to know from you tonight. Is there someone in your life who's gone quiet, who's retreated somewhere behind their own eyes and everyone keeps trying to pull them out, and it keeps not working? What would it look like to stop pulling and start walking toward them instead? To learn their language and love what they love and let them build the bridge from their side? Have you ever had someone do that for you? Just go still and patient and wait until you felt safe enough to come close. Tell me about it down in the comments. I read every single one, and tonight, yours is the one I want to hear. And if this story reached you, if you believe like I've come to believe that you don't fix the people you love, you just learn to meet them where they actually are, then do me one small favor before you go. Subscribe so the next story finds you too. Leave a like so one more parent, one more person, gets a chance to hear this tonight. And tell me about the person you're going to stop pulling and start walking toward. I'll be right here, reading every word, every